James, you were telling me that basically so far on the year, up until September, tourism figures are up, what, 16% or so?
Yes.
How about for this week? Because I have to admit, I haven't seen the lineups that I typically see outside Louis Vuitton or, Mongkok's quite busy. But just the luxury shops have been kind of quieter than usual.
In fact, you're right. Recently, we were a bit worried that the recent stock market volatility around the world might bring the tourist figure down. But the October sort of National Day counts from October 1st to October 7th. So our figure only come up to the first 5 days. Yeah. It's up by about 13%. And we figure if we count yesterday and today, we should still be up by about 10%, which is sort of a little bit higher than our 8% increase expectation.
That's pretty good, up 13% from last year. I mean, last year was pretty good. So even in these volatile times and what's happening in Europe and the U.S., the mainlanders, China, is still coming here to Hong Kong to shop. Is that right?
Well, I think there's two reasons for that. Firstly, really for a lot of people in China, they are getting richer, and they decide to travel abroad, sort of increasing. And secondly, the Beijing policy towards Hong Kong, as far as tourism is concerned, they are encouraging more individual travelers, which means not tour groups. For example, the figures I quoted you, only about 10% comes by tour groups, bus loads coming together with hotels booked and so forth. The rest come as individual travelers, which means they just come on their own. And these are actually the big shoppers.
The big shoppers, the individual travelers. Okay, let me talk to you about the spending prowess of the Chinese, because recently, we have China's growth slowing, marginally, albeit, but then, some other signs of slowing spending from China is that we recently had a Sotheby's wine auction, where for the first time in many, many auctions, Chateau Lafite was not sold out. Does this indicate to you, and from what you've seen, that maybe there is a bit of a dry up in terms of how much the mainlanders want to spend?
I do agree, because I'm a wine lover myself.
Yes,
and the auction we had in Hong Kong Sotheby's on October 1st and 2nd, a lot of the wines were sort of unsold, and some of them were sold at the lower end of the estimates. But if we look at the French Bordeaux wine, the last 2 years increase really came from demand from the mainland, especially from people who try to build a cellar.
So you still think the Chinese have money, right? They still have a lot of money to spend.
But they're not buying as much during the October 1st holiday. But I think for the rest of the year, they will continue. And talking about wine, a lot of the Chinese are now trying to buy Burgundy instead of Bordeaux.
You and Henry Tang could have this conversation, I'm guessing, for days and days. Let's talk also about this proposal to cut the luxury tax on the mainland, because isn't that kind of one of the main drivers of why the mainlanders, Chinese individuals, come to Hong Kong to buy up their Gucci's and to buy up their LVs? What happens if that's cut? I mean, does that mean we're going to see less people come here?
Personally, I don't think that's sort of doable. Because as far as mainland is concerned, you talk about Beijing, Shanghai, and then you talk about second-tier cities or third-tier cities. So a lot of them will probably want to go shopping somewhere. And if you have two-tier tax system, one for the luxury item, you have to define, is it based on price or is it based on product? They will talk that they will lower the tax on more consumer type of cosmetic or electronic products, but I don't think they will actually increase on the luxury items.
Now, James, you're a famous businessman here in Hong Kong. What's the gauge like on business sentiment this year, on the economy? I mean, are we going to see a decline this year in Hong Kong? We're headed, some are saying, for a mild recession, maybe?
I think we're very unsure, because Hong Kong is a small economy, is really sort of reacting to the rest of the world. So whatever changes in China or China being affected by Europe and the States, it will affect us. So I'm saying that right now you can see the Hong Kong stock market you just mentioned had the biggest increase in like 2 years. But you didn't mention a few days ago we had the biggest drop in over 9 months.
Yeah, and it was
so
like
we're
the lowest
going up
level
and down
since 2009.
Right. So I'm really, as a Hong Kong investors, a lot of us are thinking like sort of Americans or Europeans, stay put is the best way. Things are going so cheap that we don't want to sell. But on the other hand, well, things might get even cheaper. I mean, real estate or stocks or bonds.
Right. So you don't think things will get that bad in Hong Kong, or a bit more insulated?
Yeah, the fundamentals in Hong Kong is actually great. The tourist figure, our trade figure, our financial figure. That's mainly because of China's growth of achieving this 7 to 8%. But obviously China's growth this year or next year will be affected by what's going to end up in Europe and in the States.
All right.